athletic. But Rogers does love theme music, so congratulations, Nicole. You've got theme music. Well done.
I feel honored.
Well, yeah, you should. Rogers doesn't give theme music to everyone. Sometimes he just doesn't care. But obviously he likes you. Nicole, you got to at least somewhat experience a little bit of what I got to experience for 4 years, and that is one of the great rivalries in all of college football, not just at the Division II level, but any level. And I would encourage you at some point, if you ever get a chance to get down there and actually watch it in person, you should go. But you got a chance to talk about the Battle of the Ravine. I know every week you do a story on some of the lesser-known traditions and sort of interesting things that go along with college football. Tell me why you decided that the Battle of the Ravine is something you wanted to feature this week.
Well, I mean, I just think it's so unique in the walking across the street to play the game, and I just love that imagery, and I love the photos of it, and the whole concept of itself. I mean, I think, I went to Michigan. I was part of, I experienced Michigan, Ohio State. I experienced Michigan, Notre Dame, Michigan State. And so, you see the national rivalries, you see in-state ones. I've covered a bunch of Carolina Duke games. They're 8 miles apart, and you can tell it feels different the closer the schools are and the more you live with people on both sides of a rivalry. And so when I found out about this one, that there were two that were literally only separated by one street, and it's a town that's only 7 square miles, and literally everyone knows somebody or is tied to one side. Like, I just love the idea of it. And then, once you start digging and finding all the history, all the pranks and stuff, it's pretty great. But it was more just that idea of proximity of, like, thinking about, like, the level of vitriol in Michigan, Ohio State, but, like, if they were across the street from each other, and then just kind of picturing it from there.
Yeah, it's very unique. And I think you mentioned to me, the hook of it is they walk across the street. And I mentioned that, basically the visiting team dresses in their own locker room at their own field house, and then the cops go and close Highway 67, and the visiting team walks across the street, and then when they get done, the visiting team walks back across the street to their own locker room. To me, it's one of the coolest things that you could have, because we all know how good college football is, especially these rivalry games, and we have a lot of great rivalry trophies. I know Floyd of Rosedale, the pig, is being played for this week. You have a lot of great rivalry trophies, but to me, having a unique rivalry situation like a team will walk across the street to the other team, or the two stadiums, you can see the other stadium from one of them, to me, that just makes it a super, super cool deal.
Yeah, and I think, like, just talking to people and the coaches and the athletic directors about what it feels like to walk back across the street after you win or after you lose, and just, like, putting yourself in those shoes and picturing that and imagining what it feels like. It's pretty cool. So, yeah, I absolutely want to get down there at some point. It just seems like something that is just such a cool thing to experience.
And I will tell you, part of it is, and I was there before Ouachita built its new stadium, which is beautiful. It's better than probably any Division II stadium I've ever seen. And Henderson right across the street has a nice stadium as well. They now both are tremendous places to go watch a game, but being in school there was the guarding of the tiger when you were at OBU, and there was you have to turn off the fountain in front of Henderson because kids would go throw laundry detergent and purple food coloring in to try to create purple foam, and the stuff that goes on is tremendous, up to and including back in the 50s, which you got to talk about a little bit, basically kidnapping the homecoming queen.
Yeah, I mean, that's just an unreal element. I mean, because everyone kept being like, yeah, you can never do this today. I'm like, but could you really have gotten away with this in the 50s? I guess, like they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a crazy thing, and to do that as part of the pranks, and dropping things from airplanes that are certain colors. Like, there's just so many
maroon
things.
and gray marshmallows.
Yes, yeah, and I got a text from another colleague I didn't realize went to one of the schools, and he was saying how he was involved in certain pranks, but nothing that could be prosecuted by law now. And it just sounds like there's just so much around this game, and it's a blast.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, as you mentioned, it's a tiny town, and so Henderson students take classes at OBU, and OBU students take classes at Henderson. and sometimes they intermarry. Our point guard at OBU married a Henderson grad, and I've never forgiven her as long as she's been around. Like I still tell her to this day, I can't believe you married a Henderson grad. The women's basketball coach was a Henderson grad that coached at OBU. So it's so much fun, and honestly, Nicole, it's one of those really cool deals. It's part of the reason why I love this series that you've been doing all year about sort of these unknown, weird, sort of different aspects of college football. Rod, just to let you know, I've tried to get Nicole to report on rubbing the weevil down at Arkansas Monticello, where they rub the boll weevil when they come out of the field house, because there's just so many weird, cool things about college football. Tell me about some of the things you found out about this year that maybe you didn't know about.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, most of them were things like that. And I mean, like even last week I did a story on the guy who brings the sign, basically the only sign that's at the Swamp, Florida game, Work 'em Silly Gators. And there were so many people, and, you know, he's like, this is how the origin story, this is the first day we did it, blah, blah, blah. And he had all these people in the comments saying that I could have sworn that thing was there when I was there in the 60s and in the 70s. And it's so funny because in so many of the traditions and like the ritual stuff, they take on a life of their own, and there's like this legend that's built into almost all of them, where you know that like everything is being exaggerated, but it almost doesn't really matter because that's kind of what these things are, and they're supposed to be. And you know, it's the stuff about college football that we love, that we've always wondered about. Like I always wondered if there was tailgating at BYU, like if that was physically allowed. So I was like, you know what? Let's find out. And I find out. And there's one guy, and he created a lot, and he's allowed to do it, and visiting fans go there, and it's this whole thing. And, you know, so it's been really fun to get to do stories like that where sometimes it's just me getting to ask questions and answer them, like, hey, you're a mascot. Like, what do you do to keep your identity secret from your roommates, you know? Versus, like, you know, certain other things that are more rituals and maybe don't have necessarily an origin. But just, you know, getting into why they're part of that school's traditions or that part of the sport. And so it's been super fun, but this is something that had been on the list, and I just, you know, was waiting for the right week to run this one.
Yeah, and this is definitely the right week. It's number 5, 10-0 OBU against number 20, 9-1 Henderson State. And by the way, because I'm an OBU grad, Nicole, I've been pestering you for the last several weeks about it anyway, and I apologize for that. But at the same time, I'm taking a personal day tomorrow, and I'm going to have Todd Knight, the head coach of OBU, on because I can. Because, you know,
nice.
Why not? You know, I mean, I'm a grad.
Yeah,
I certainly would never.
He was great. I talked to him earlier this week.
Yeah. And by the way, I would love if he was a dark horse candidate for the Arkansas job, to be honest with you, because all he's done is win. He's got the best winning percentage over the last decade in the state of Arkansas. You know, I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but they could do worse than hiring Todd Knight, I can assure you. Talking to Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic. Now, one of the interesting aspects of this, and you and I kind of texted about this a little earlier today, is the Well Actually group that's out there. And you know, as a female journalist, especially in sports, you get this more than any human being should. And I feel for all of you that have to deal with this on a day in, day out basis. But you had a guy that popped in like, well, this particular rivalry is actually 0.6 miles away, not 0.9 miles away. I mean,
yeah.
At some point, can't we just appreciate the coolness of the story and not have to, well, actually, everyone? I mean, Nicole.
Yeah, well, I would hope so. I mean, that's the crazy thing. He's basing it off of Google Maps and things, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to base this off of the measurements and estimates by the people who actually live there and do that walk.
And how about this picture that you can see both stadiums, you know, from each other?
Right.
I mean, come on. And honestly, not to get on a soapbox about this, but I don't get it. I don't understand it, and I don't know how y'all as a female journalism group, especially in sports, are able to withstand the absolute crap that y'all have to deal with on a daily basis. It's ridiculous.
It's a thick skin thing, and then also filters, and you know, like I didn't even see this guy's tweets initially because he doesn't follow me. So I set my filter so that only people who follow me, I can see their mentions, because you know what, a lot of this stuff is guys don't want a woman talking about sports, but I realized that my followers are aware that I'm a woman talking about sports, and they're not as bad.
Yeah. Well, and look, you do fantastic work. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You wouldn't be where you were if you didn't. All right,
Thank you.
let's broaden it out a little bit and let's talk about college football more as a whole here. Hey, are you going anywhere this weekend, or are you at home?
I'm at home.
Okay, that's that's the best place to be, as
It
far
is
as I'm
the best
concerned.
place.
You can watch everything all at once. As we're kind of heading to the last couple of games of the season, what is most interesting to you as this season is shaping up? What are you most looking forward to following over the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm obviously interested in the conferences that have conference races going on, and so yeah, I mean, Clemson is playing lights out right now. They look great, but I'm not as interested down the stretch run of the ACC. Although I do want to see them play Wake Forest this week. The Big Ten race is kind of interesting, especially in the West, to see if Minnesota can actually do this and get to Indianapolis. The SEC, there's a lot that's got to shake out still, and as frustrating it is that Alabama appears to still be in the hunt for the playoff. There's definitely ways that they're going to stay in that mix and not fall off, depending on how these last couple games go and how all the dominoes fall. But I do, I want to see, how LSU handles kind of being the top dog right now and getting everyone's best shot. Can their defense shore up? I want to see that. I want to see how the Big 12 race shakes out. I mean, that league doesn't look all that well positioned in terms of the playoff right now. But we're going to learn a lot about who the best team is on Saturday night with Oklahoma Baylor. And, Baylor's in the same position that Minnesota was, where it's like, well, they're undefeated, but they've had some dicey games, but also just who have they beaten, and you get an opportunity to do that. And I think that's kind of why Minnesota's story as a whole is one of the more interesting ones this year because of that, because it's nice when we get some fresh blood and some new teams kind of really making some noise nationally. But also just the idea of someone stepping up and in the biggest moment that that program hasn't been in half a century and performing so well. It's a cool story. It's fascinating to cover. Oregon's resurgence from the start of the season when everyone wrote them off. That's interesting to me. So yeah, I mean, it's basically just the stretch run of all these seasons, and seeing, what can shake out, heading into conference championship weekend.
Talking to Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic. By the way, as I've told you repeatedly, as we keep having tremendous athletic writers on, you need to have a subscription to The Athletic. Look, here's what I'm doing, Nicole. I'm dropping my Netflix, and I'm picking up Disney Plus with the Hulu and the ESPN Plus.
Disney Plus is awesome.
Yeah, but I'm holding on to my Athletic subscription. That's not going anywhere.
Good choice.
Yeah, I'm not having that move at all. I'm curious, Nicole. Do you think the Heisman is a done deal at this point for Joe Burrow? If he just, if they just don't stub their toe against Ole Miss, Arkansas, or Texas A&M, that he's going to win it, or do you think there's other players that might have a chance to come up and actually get him?
Well, it's going to be an interesting thing because certainly he had his Heisman moment, Heisman performance, and his numbers are just going to be insane by the end of the season. But, guys like Justin Fields and maybe even Jalen Hurts, they're going to have these big marquee games down the stretch. Justin Fields has his big games ahead of him with Penn State and Michigan. And those are going to be those opportunities for those moments, for those flash. And, if you think about last year, part of the reason that Kyler Murray won the Heisman was because people did have that. It was the end of the season, last week of the year. They saw, Jalen Hurts be the hero for Alabama without Tua. And you saw what Kyler Murray did. And that shifted the balance. And so it's always possible. But I do really think that you're probably not going to see an individual performance more impressive considering what was at stake than what Joe Burrow did in Tuscaloosa. I think things could have been a little bit different if Chase Young didn't have to miss 2 games for the NCAA issue because, if he was let's say if he was double digits or if he was in the 20s in terms of sacks, that would have been really hard to pass up. So there's some things are falling Joe Burrow's way for sure. But, I think probably Justin Fields is the one who's positioned, just considering the magnitude of the games ahead, to have those moments and kind of get himself in that upper echelon.
Nicole, I will disagree with you on this. Actually, you. here. Actually, I think the most impressive individual performance of the year was the lady that was knitting during the Kansas game.
She was crocheting.
Crocheting. Sorry,
crocheting, not knitting.
I'm sorry. I wouldn't know the difference, to be honest with you. So I appreciate you actualing me on that one. That was very well done. And by the way, to me, that's got to be one of the cool aspects of your job is you got a chance. Everyone saw her sitting there with her crocheting and wondering what is the story with this. That's what the internet does now. We find something, we're fascinated by the story. You actually went to go and cover it. To me, that's a cool part of your job that you're given the freedom to, hey, let's not just talk about this stuff that's happening over here on the field, but let's talk about this cool story of this lady that's up there crocheting.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, all of these things are the things that only happen at college football or around college football, and that's why we love it.
No doubt about that. All right, I guess let's see. I don't want to ask you about the college football playoff selection committee because I hate their polls and their rankings at this point. Would you be okay if they just put out their one and only ranking at the end of the year and stopped with this charade of the TV show on Tuesday nights? Would you be okay if they just ended that?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But that's essentially where we've been with college basketball for forever. And you have a complete body of work, and you evaluate it, and people grumble and grumble, but you know that they're evaluating the complete body of work. And so I think a lot of people would be happier with that, or even just one midseason one to give you a gauge, and then one at the end.
Yeah, I just everybody going up and just getting crazy about this in the second week of the rankings just drives me crazy. I can't handle it. I won't talk about it on my show either. I can't deal with it. Nicole, you're the best, and thank you so much for spotlighting my alma mater and the Battle of the Ravine. And we certainly look forward to more of your work in The Athletic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic again.